Hello and welcome to another episode of Generally Speaking. Today is Monday, May 25th, 2026. Oh, what kind of goodies are going on in the world at this time? Well, here's an interesting one out of Texas. A woman's tap water was coming out muddy, dirty, horrible, and all the people, her neighbors, getting the same thing she posted to Facebook about how terrible the water is. Something's wrong here. Well, she got arrested, charged with a felony. You know, they got different levels of crimes. Misdemeanor is not so bad. Felony's pretty bad. So she's got a felony charge, scaring everybody. How ridiculous, the authorities will get um, sometimes. And that's pretty ridiculous, right? Oh, a glass harmonica. Glass harmonica. Have you ever heard of that? It doesn't look like a harmonica whatsoever. It looks like a long tube, like a rolling pin, actually. What am I mentioning this glass harmonica for? One, it sounds beautiful. You have to look it up and hear it playing. It's a very eerie kind of thing. In fact, it's so eerie that when it was first introduced in the 1700s, it was banned because it was too spooky. They said it was hypnotizing people and causing them to lose their mind. So it was banned for almost 200 years before someone dusted off the dust and brought it out again. Like I said, it's a glass rolling pin. You play it just by resting your fingers on the glass while it's spinning, and it's a beautiful sound. Glass harmonica. All right, there's that story. By the way, if you like any of this, please make a like, make a comment, say good stuff, or I hate it, or whatever, and do a subscribe, hit the notify, all those good stuffs. All right, so what else? What's next? The DNC, Democratic National Committee, they have rejected any efforts to limit the influence of APAC. So, yeah, the Democrats are supposed to be all the good guys, at least from the Democrats' point of view, and the Republicans so bad. But so many of the Democrats are just Republican light. And so many of them are still beholden, taking money, hundreds of thousands, even up to millions of money from APAC. And so, yeah, they don't want to support limiting any impact of APAC. This comes from Hawk Podcasts. I love watching this guy. He does a lot of good things. And he was actually showcasing someone else's report about an agency in the government that was focusing on cruise ship diseases, the going between these different countries. Want to make sure we monitor that no diseases are coming in. And that agency was closed as part of the Doge, the efficiency um, project. Yes, make it efficient. But the thing that really is strange about this is that it was paid for by the cruise lines. The cruise lines would charge a certain amount of money in order for this agency to function. So it wasn't costing us anything, but they closed it anyway because we've got a screwed up health agency under RFK. All right, what else? We got a white doctor is suing a directory of doctors because they didn't want to let him on that directory. Why not? Well, because this directory is a directory for black doctors. Find a black doctor. Blacks and whites, you might say, we're all just people, but they're not exactly the same. Black people have different physiological conditions, issues that white people don't. I'm sure the same is true of Asians and all different peoples around the world. They say there aren't any different species. We're all just people. It's almost like, there's no such thing as blacks. There's no such thing as Chinese. No, they don't exist. They're just people. Yeah. Tell that to me. I know if I go to the store and I want to get a Pomeranian and I get a Great Dane, you say, well, they're just dogs. They're just dogs. Yeah, okay. Tell me about it. So anyway, this guy, he's a white guy, and he's suing them for them not wanting to put him in their directory of black doctors because obviously he's not a black doctor. And this is just another one of those troublemaker white guys, just looking to make trouble. He probably didn't care if he was on that or not. He just figured, hey, I can make trouble. I'll say I want to be on it. They'll tell me no, and I can start making a lawsuit about it. All right, Jalis. What is Jalis? First, let me spell it. Jalis. And what is it? Those are windows that are not strictly speaking glass kind of windows. They're just, imagine you had a wall and you cut a design into it, and so you could have air coming in through the design. These are called jalis, and they're popular in India, and they're methods of making things cool. I was watching a whole thing about how the ancients and even the todayans, make your environment, your housing, your insides cool by directing the flow of airs with small windows and rooms in a certain way, courtyards in the middle of your home with maybe a little water fountain for evaporation. It's amazing what the ancients thought of that, we've just totally forgotten. All right, Trump is talking up stocks that he traded. This was an article, a couple of articles I was watching about the grift, they were calling it. How Trump's involved in all these trades, and he's making money off of it. And they were giving examples by he would invest in AMD or he would invest in some other, and then he would go out and say, "This is a great company. I really love this company." And I can't fault anybody for that. I've got a brother-in-law who bought stock he thought was, this is going to be great. This is going to be fantastic. Put a lot of money in it. Started telling all his family, this is a great company. You should invest in it. Put your money in this company. It's going to be good. I won't call that a crime. I don't call Trump saying this or that's going to be a good company or I really like it. I don't call that a crime either. Even with him being, a popular figure that everybody's going to see and hear. Now, what's I do consider a grift is when on the weekend, on a Friday, he says, I'm going to make peace with Iran. And suddenly oil prices go down. And he invested in all these oil prices just before them and makes a killing when on Monday, he says, oh, no, back to war. And the prices go back up. And now that's what I call manipulation. But this thing of just saying, hey, this stock's great, you should go buy it. No, I can't fault a man for that. Vestal Virgins. You may have heard of Vestal Virgins. It's a kind of semi-common term. I'm not sure what a Vestal is, but I got the impression that these were women who were charged with keeping the flame of Rome alive. I guess they had a flame, and I guess they liked to keep it burning. So you had to be a virgin. Girls would ordinarily be submitted for this at early ages, between 6 and 10 years old. And they would stay, holding on to this job of keeping the flame alert. And it was actually a pretty prestigious position. You could get criminals pardoned. You were politically in the know. You would get front row seats at the Coliseum. And, people would want to be friends with these Vestal Virgins so they could get the front row seat, or maybe they could get pardoned. Of course, this does come with a downside that, they might be wrongly accused if someone didn't like them and say, you're not a virgin anymore, you did the no-no, and that could end up in you being buried alive. So, yeah, this had a downside, Vestal Virgins. Okay. My Nejuan. It's hard to pronounce this word, but what is it? It's a word in Japanese. That's why I'm having a hard time with it. It's a newly created word, and it's for the downtrodden, the people who are getting beaten into more and more work for less and less return. My Nejuan. And so the people commenting it were, playing off that word, hey, my nigga. And he was saying, yeah, my Nejuan, because that's the life they're living now. It's on the grindstone. They do work incredibly crazily, nicest people in the world, so respectful, all, clean as a whistle, the whole place. But they work them to death. And they've got this big thing about, you have to succeed. You have to be at the top of the ladder. And they're a little overdone in that area. All right, what do we got? Toys R Us. You may have heard of them, right? They were famous. They're not around anymore, along with Sears, Red Lobster, Joann's Fabrics. And why aren't they around? Because people don't like them anymore? No, because the corporations, the corporate people at top, decided, you know what? We could sell these things and take them apart, and we can make a huge killing and make a huge profit, and then just leave all the workers out of work, and who cares, the company doesn't exist anymore. We made $1 million, yes sir, and now I'll just go find myself another board of directors to be a part of. This is the terrible mindset that's in this country too much. That's the bad thing about capitalism. You can say some good things about capitalism. I can't think of them really so much right now, but on the bad side, it's all about profit. It's all about money. And this world is a world of humans, of people that should be working together. You shouldn't just be thinking about money. All right, that's what happened with Toys R Us and Sears. The Virginia Supreme Court, they rejected a referendum of the people. It was put on the ballot. Oh, all you people decide, this is very democratic. Not going to be just politicians deciding. Put it to the people. Can we redistrict the political districts, gerrymandering, as they say, because that's what's going on with the Republicans trying to cut out the Democrats. So we want to do in Virginia the opposite, so the Democrats get in. But we're not just going to do it. We're going to ask the people if they'll approve of it first. And this is only a temporary measure. We're just saying that. And they voted for it. Yes, we're going to do it. Well, of course, the Republicans didn't like that, and they brought a suit, and it went to the Supreme Court in Virginia. And apparently that's loaded with right-wing justices, and they said no, shoot it down. These justices, it's just a strange cog in this machine. You get these tiny little pieces that can muck the whole things up, and like our Supreme Court, what, nine people changed the course of everything. Doesn't seem like really so good. I guess it was when it was functioning as you more or less thought it should, but it's certainly not functioning as it should now. All right. Efforts to rein in the war against Iran. They're still talking about making a deal, having a deal, but there is no deal. Trump just keeps saying, oh, we got a deal coming any day now, and we've got things on the table. And then Iran just says, what are you talking about? Nobody spoke with us about anything. And no, there is no deal. But that's what Trump likes to keep saying. All right, so Israel's systemic torture is finally being recognized by mainstream media. The New York Times was talking about how prisoners are routinely tortured, sexually assaulted, having pipes being shoved up their buttocks and other areas, and beaten. And the Israelis, said this is blood libel. I love the way they use that word, blood libel. Like, if you can't say really bad, that's really bad, really bad. No, I got a good word, better word than really bad. It's called blood libel. How dare you say that? And they were going to sue the New York Times. That was all the rage for a while, but that never happened because everybody knows if you're going to sue the New York Times, which how Israel could even do that in the first place, I don't know. But on the other hand, if the United States can charge Maduro, who's someone in another country, why can't Israel sue the New York Times? But they won't do it anyway because part of the suing process means that the New York Times gets to demonstrate. What do you call? Show exactly what Israel's doing to back up what they're saying, and that won't look good. Discovery, that's called, and that will not look good. So that kind of just faded into the past. That just disappeared. All right, so there's that. Israel is threatening the entire world. Is a check too big to cash? This is what somebody was saying. They were commenting on Israel, and saying Israel doesn't hide anything of what it's doing anymore, and Israel doesn't care what anybody says. and that Israel threatening the entire world, that's a check too big to cash. And I was thinking, well, you know what? That check is still being cashed. United States is still sending money, arms, and everything. UK is still sending arms and military and stuff, and so is the rest of Europe sending funds support to Israel. So that check actually still is being cashed, and it's disgusting and it's horrible. It's unbelievable. All right, we got back to local New York City. Mamdani, he collected 9 million from Amazon in fines for having vehicles that just sit out there in the streets idling, polluting the air. And in a way, okay, I understand that's something you want to fight, but when you think of all the cars and trucks that are in New York just driving up and down constantly, I can't even see what kind of a dent these vehicles are making. But I get the idea. You want to do that, and Mamdani collected 9 million from them, and as well, he's collected 30 million from landlords who haven't been doing the right thing by the apartments that they have. And I'm thinking, Mamdani, he's the right thing. He's doing right by what he said he was going to do, and he's doing it. Even though 9 million and 30 million in a city the size of New York is a drop in the bucket, he's still moving in the right direction. All right, here was a person commenting on something or another, and they made a funny sentence about evolution, how it's about being as lazy as you can without dying. Evolution, how we develop, we become. It's whatever, it barely keeps you alive without dying. That's what will, evolve and go forward. And I thought that was very funny. So the last item here, a pound of beef now costs more than the minimum wage. So now this statement in itself is a horrible statement, number one. Number two, that the minimum wage hasn't changed, the federal minimum wage at least hasn't changed, for 20 something years, if not more. And what is with the federal government? What is with even the Democrats? Are none of them even proposing any wages, increases? That's one thing. Then here's the last part. This was a person who was commenting. It was on mainstream media, and the person who was saying it phrased it like a pound of beef now costs more than the minimum wage, so I am told. Now I'm thinking, so I am told. Why does he have to be told? Because he knows nothing about the minimum wage or a pound of beef. He's a millionaire. He's one of these, mainstream media public figures. Makes hundreds of thousands of dollars every year, if not more. So yeah, so I am told. That's the people who are out of touch. Well, there we go. There was my spiel for this session. Hope you liked it. Hope you gave a like, subscribe, notify, comment. I always like to see a comment. You liked it, you didn't like it, how it could be better, anything whatsoever. Well, there you go. That's that. Take care and goodbye.